Okay, so I'm gonna try to get through the rest of the story pretty fast because it's long and I already kind of went over it the last time, but I mean through the previous lectures. But basically, what happens next is, like I said, I quit basketball, and then what I discovered, and right after I quit basketball, I discovered the quadrant model. But what I discovered was, after I quit basketball, I wasn't able to write raps anymore. But then I noticed, like right before a math test or something, I'd be able to write raps, and then I started to realize, wait, I can only write raps when I'm nervous. So then I tried to get back on the basketball team, but the coach said I couldn't get back on the basketball team because I already quit. This is at UC San Diego. So then I wanted to get back into basketball and wanted to get back into rap music. And like I said, I wanted to, my sophomore year of college, I was studying the videos and I discovered the swag flow for the first time. I'm not going to describe what the swag flow is, but then I really wanted to get basketball videos. But then I lost the swag flow, but I'm not going to get into details about what it is. But I really want to get basketball videos. So but in the back of my mind, I was like, I should get a hold of Malik because probably his dad has a lot of basketball videos. And I also wanted to get a hold of all of my other teammates. But then at the same time, I thought to myself, you discovered the quadrant model. This is the theory of everything. And like I said, my whole life, I saw myself as the Messiah. And I knew I was going to discover something big. And when I discovered the quadrant model, I was like, this is confirmation. Yes, I am the Messiah. I knew this my whole life. I discovered the theory of everything. And so that's the way I saw it. But as I said, I was studying the Bible with my grandpa, and my grandpa, like I said, I felt that he was always a Nazi white supremacist, and he interpreted the Bible through like a right-wing lens. But as I was reading the Bible, I wanted to see it through a left-wing lens, and I wanted to make the Jews the good guys and the white people the bad guys, and the people of color the good guys and the white people the bad guys. So I interpreted the Bible through that lens. And at the same time, I went to this. I was going to this Korean cult because I wanted to study the Bible. I wanted to see what it was about. So at the Korean cult, they were teaching that Jesus was basically, like when Jesus multiplied bread, they're like, he didn't really perform any miracles. That was just him teaching everybody to share. And that was what the multiplication of bread was. So I'm reading this and I'm studying with them. And I'm like, okay. So I was like, yeah, Jesus was a communist. Because I hated my grandpa because I always saw him as a white supremacist Nazi. And I thought that he interpreted the Bible through a fascist lens. But I wanted to think, hey, the Bible really is communist and it's really pro-Jewish. So like I said, the Bible, throughout the Bible, it says like the Jews don't believe or they don't perceive and, stuff like that. And they make the Jews into the bad guys. But I was like, no, when the Jews were washing it says before Jesus was crucified, the Jews washed their hands of the blood, or the Jews take the blood on them. And I was like, yeah, well, that's a metaphor of the Passover, where they get the blood on them so that they will be saved. So I started to think like, yeah, maybe the whole Jesus thing was just to destroy the Roman Empire. And I'm going to get to this. I was like, maybe Jesus converted the Romans, or if he existed, maybe the Romans, because I thought, they could have just been converted to Christianity regardless, but maybe the Romans were just converted to Christianity as a trick by the Jews to destroy the Roman Empire, to give them a pro-Jewish religion, even a kind of communist religion, to uproot and subvert the Roman Empire and defeat them. So really, so it says the Jews didn't believe, but yes, I was like, my grandpa taught me, he said, belief is not the flow, but, knowing is the flow, is more the flow, but that's knowing the truth, So I was like, okay, well, the Jews don't believe, but maybe that's why they're the chosen people, because they don't believe so that they cannot, because belief is not the flow, so that they can see the truth, which would be the flow. So I tried to invert everything and make the Romans the bad guys and the Jews the good guys. And even though it seems like the Jews are the bad guys, really, it was just a trick. The Bible was just a trick to convert them to Christianity, to defeat the Romans, to give them a pro-Jewish religion. And I started looking throughout the whole Bible, and I started seeing evidence of this everywhere. So I'm like, okay, well, Joseph converts the Egyptians, kind of, and he becomes their god king, and then they destroy Egypt. And I'm like, and Jonah converts the Ninevites, and then Nineveh is destroyed, but the Jews are saved. So I'm like, maybe the same thing is true with Christianity. Maybe it was just a trick by the Jews. But again, why did I want to believe this so bad? Because I was a communist, and also I wanted to subvert Christianity because I saw Christianity as pro-white, white supremacist, maintaining division, and I wanted to destroy it, So that's the way I'm interpreting the Bible, and I'm like, okay, and I'm getting a lot of evidence for this. I'm like, okay, really, this was just all a trick. It's just, and the Jews are really, even though it seems like the Jews are the bad guys and they don't believe, they're actually the good guys. That's why they're the chosen people, because they don't believe it. And then therefore they can get into the truth, because belief is not the flow necessarily, right? So I tried to subvert everything. So I would use my grandpa's teachings, but I would manipulate them in my communist lens to make the people of color the good guys and the white people the bad guys. That's the way I want to see things, because that was my ego, right? So anyway, so then I go to a rabbi at the Hillel. This is the first time I go to Hillel. And I'm basically telling him, I'm like, because in my mind, I'm like, it really, in the back of my mind, the most important thing I'm thinking all the time, I want to get my basketball videos of when I'm younger, because I want to study swag flow, because I lost the swag flow. And I was suffering at that time. I lost the swag flow. I wanted to get the swag flow again. So in my mind, I was like, okay, well, what, you're the Messiah. And like, I'm studying all this. I'm discovering all this amazing stuff with the Bible too. And I'll get into that. And I discovered the theory of everything. I'm like, dude, you are the Messiah. That's the way I see it. And I still see it. I still think I'm the Messiah. But I'm like, okay, I discovered amazing stuff. I think I'm the Messiah. And I tell myself, okay, well, what is the Messiah supposed to do? Apparently he's supposed to go to Israel and he's supposed to become the king, and he's supposed to, that's what the Bible says. I'm reading the Bible with my grandpa, and I'm reading that stuff, and I'm like, look, it's obvious this book is pro-Jewish. It says that the Messiah is going to go to Israel. He's going to take over the world. So I'm, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm that guy. So I'm like, yes. And it never changed. In my mind, I was like, yeah, and Jesus, he came to trick the Romans, to convert them to Christianity. If he came, regardless, they could have just been converted based off of stories. But regardless, Christianity was a trick to destroy the Romans. And I was like, yeah, this was all just a trick. And because I wanted to subvert Christianity, because I saw Christianity as pro-white and I was anti-white. So I was just like, okay. But the Bible says that the Messiah is going to come and he's going to take over. He's going to be the king of Israel, the king of the world. All the nations are going to bow to him. And I'm like, I'm that guy. That's the way I saw it. I'm like, I'm the guy that all the nations will bow to, and I will take over the world. And in my mind, I was like, and why do I want to take over the world so bad? Because I was like, and I want my basketball video. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to become the king of Israel. I'll have an army. And then once I have an army, I'll definitely be able to get, because I didn't want to just ask because again, maybe my grandpa was like, right, I was not in the flow. I was trying to make things happen. I should have just asked people, hey, Malik, do you have my basketball videos? Hey, so, blah, 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 you, do you have my basketball videos? I should just ask people, but I was too afraid, because I was like, what if they say no? Maybe they don't respect me anymore because of how my shot got messed up and all that stuff. I was like, first I'll get power. I'll become basically the king. I'll have an army behind me. And then when I ask in my mind, I was like, this is definitely going to happen. I discovered theory of everything. And so I was like, and in my mind, I was like, yeah. So then once you're the boss and you have an army behind you and you're the Messiah, or at least people see you as the Messiah. And I thought, if they don't see me as the Messiah, that's it with them. I was like, once that happens, then you'll definitely be able to get your basketball videos. That's really how I was thinking. So I went to the rabbi and I told him, I was like, so I went to Rabbi Hillel and I was just like, I discovered the theory of everything. And I was like, I'm not going to get into it, and I basically tried to insinuate like, I'm a big deal. I didn't want to say it completely, but I was like, I might be the Messiah, And he's like, okay, we'll get you to Israel and we'll get you in a jam trip, the Jewish Awareness Movement. It's an Orthodox Jewish trip. But again, in my mind, I thought that all Jews were communists, because I'd always been around communist Jews. I'd never been around the Orthodox Jews. I didn't know there was religious Jews. I really didn't know that. It's kind of crazy to think that. But I mean, I remember when I was younger, every once in a while I would see like a Jew wearing a kippah and stuff like that. But I didn't know that they were like religious. I didn't know that they were like, very religious and that they weren't allowed to touch women. And I thought that all Jews were communists. And I thought that, yeah, some of them wore the hats and stuff like that. But I was like, but that's just to show other Jews that they're Jews. And I didn't know that it was like a religious. I didn't know anything about Judaism, because I was never brought up with anything religious, really. I only went to Hebrew preschool, and it was a reform thing. So I didn't know anything about Judaism. So especially Orthodox Judaism. So then I went to this jam trip, and I go to the trip, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get there. I'm going to show the rabbis the quadrant model. I thought the rabbis would be communists like me. And I was like, and they're going to be like, whoa, this guy's the Messiah, and I'm going to get power. And I'm going to be seen as a Messiah. I'm going to get power. And I'm basically, and in my mind, with the way I was going to be the leader was I was going to be a communist leader, and I was going to like dissolve all borders. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I'll probably create a forecast society based around personality, temperaments, and a scientific society, because I was a communist, like a Marxist. And I thought I would make all the races mix, because I didn't like white people. That was like always in the back of my mind. I didn't like white people, and I saw white people as the biggest threat to Jews, so I'd make them all mix. But in the back of my mind, I was also like, but kind of, I'll keep, I'll keep the Jews basically as the chosen people. Like the Jews have Israel, but everyone will mix. But at the same time, the Jews will be basic. It's kind of crazy. But I was trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. But the main thing was I was going to be the Messiah. I was going to get power, and then I was going to get my basketball videos. It's kind of crazy, but this is the way I saw it. And like I said, I studied the Bible, and I was like, yes, the Bible's communist. I was anti-white, so I was like, the Bible's communist. It's anti, it was the opposite of what my grandpa taught. And like I said, again, the reason why my grandpa pissed me off so much because he always seemed like a victim blamer. And I felt like he didn't help me. I was abused and he didn't help me. And I always saw him as like a fascist Nazi, and I was a communist. So anyway, so it is kind of crazy. Like my grandpa said, this was my ego, and I was not in the flow, and I was trying to manipulate things and make things happen, and it backfired. So then I went to Israel, but then this is a good thing. I went to Israel, but then I met the Orthodox people, and they're telling me like they were anti-communist, and I was like, what? I was like, I thought all Jews were communists. And I'm at a jam trip, and these are like this Aish Orthodox Judaism, and they're basically like giving us lectures, and they're like, communism is bad and religion's good. And I always hated religion. I was like, no, I'm gonna get rid of religion. Religion is like divides people, and it's white supremacist, and it's stupid. And I'm like, it's basically white supremacy. And you Jews are you guys really? In my mind, I was like, are these people really Jews, or are they just secret white supremacists? Because they're like, they're like, yeah, and we're against abortion, and they're like basically like Fox News. They're basically like Fox News lovers, and like basically everything Fox News. And I was like a communist, so they're all about like women shouldn't touch men unless they're married, and I was like, no, dude, like this is the new, like we're in 2022, we're in 2013, like this is, you still want to treat women like baby makers? And in my mind, I'm like, dude, these people are Nazis. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm like, all these Orthodox Jews are Nazis, but I'd never experienced Orthodox Jews before. So it was like a complete culture shock. And I was always a communist, and I was a leftist. So I was like, what? So I went to Israel thinking I'm going to be the Messiah. I'm going to get power. But then it was a culture shock. I'm like, whoa, this isn't what I expected. So then I ended up going back home, and I had to like recalibrate. And I'm like, what's going on? But that's when I started to try to get, so I'm talking to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, can you and Dad help me get basketball videos? Because I had asked her, but my mom was like, no, why do you care about basketball? We're not going to help you with, basically my mom wasn't going to, she's like, she didn't want to do anything about the past. Because remember, my grandpa had said, don't care about the past. Like, don't worry about the past, because if you're in the flow, you're in the eternal moment and stuff like that. So, but I'm like, Mom, can you and Dad help me get the quadrant model out? And my mom was like, you have schizophrenia. You have schizophrenia. We're not going to help you get the quadrant model out. That's schizophrenia. I'm like, come on, Mom. But my mom was like, you have to go to live with your grandpa on Kauai. And I'm like, Mom, I discovered theory of everything. Can I stay here? Can you guys help me talk to teachers, talk to professors and stuff, get the quadrant model big? Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I just get the quadrant model big, I'll get the respect. Then I'm going to ask all my friends for the basketball videos. My mom's like, no, you have schizophrenia. You have to leave Los Angeles, and you have to live on Kauai. And I'm like, Mom, please. My mom's like, if you stay in Los Angeles, I'm going to make your life hell. You need to go to Kauai. So I was like, so I was like, I just want to stay at my grandma's house. I was living at my grandma's house. This is right when I graduated from college. I just graduated at 3.1 GPA. My mom was like, you need to stay in Kauai. But like I said, and in the back of my mind, the whole time I'm thinking, I just want to talk to my friends who I played basketball with and see if any of them have basketball videos. I want to ask them if I can get basketball videos. But my mom's telling me I have to go to Kauai. But I'm like, I also, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I want to get the quadrant model big so that I will get the respect, and then I'll, be seen as powerful and get the respect. Like, whoa, I discovered theory of everything. And then I'll ask my friends for the basketball videos, and then they'll be like, oh, this guy's like a big deal. I'll give him the basketball videos. Again, my grandpa would say, this was my fear running me. Instead of just asking people, I should have just asked people. But again, I came from abuse. So yes, maybe I was being ran by fear, and, I should have just, it would have been ideal if I just asked people. But again, I was trying to make things happen. I was not in the flow. So then my mom said, you have to live on Kauai. So at the time, I'm posting all my quadrant model stuff on Facebook. I'm posting all these quadrant examples, okay? But I didn't know my mom had my Facebook password. So my mom was always on my Facebook, and I didn't even know that. But I never used Facebook before, but my mom was on my Facebook, and every time I would post something about the quadrant model, my mom would delete it or hide it, and I didn't know that. So again, if my mom and dad were just in my life and just supporting me and talking to me and not so against me, all this crazy stuff wouldn't happen. So I'm posting all this quadrant model stuff, and my mom is basically hiding all of it. And she says, you have to go to Kauai. So then I go to Kauai, and I'll get to what happens when I get to Kauai.